that is something that we're going to have to talk about.
We'll discuss. A young 6'10" Mitch, bro.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
We'll be in the lab with it.
So, welcome back, guys, to the Express podcast. We've taken a slight break. Been extremely busy, and we are finally getting back into our groove here. We're going to be producing something a little more consistent. Today is going to be March 9th when we are putting this out, and we will put out our next episode on Tuesday, the following. So what that means is we're going to be putting out 2 episodes every month to be more consistent and give you all the content. We appreciate all the love you've been giving us, definitely through the Instagram and other social media platforms. That's been great, and we're just, I guess I can speak for all of us, saying we're just happy to finally be back in the booth recording something. So just give you a quick little update. Mitch, you have some big news regarding all things Loyal.
Yeah, no, we've been busy over here, bro. We just moved into a new office space, a new warehouse space. So we moved in I guess last week was our first official week in here. So just trying to get everything put together and keep it moving, bro. But it's definitely nice to be out the house with it, bro. Just, big moves coming 2021.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely with I would say that's a large step in the business platform too.
Facts, bro. It's been so nice, dog. Yeah. No, it's definitely gonna definitely make me get some more stuff popping out here soon. So expect some stuff. And
then Dans, you are in Florida currently.
Spring training.
Living the spring training life.
Man, what? The spring training life is fun, but it can be very boring at times. Mal is obviously not here, so just riding that lonely train, to be honest. We go to the field, do my stuff at the field, make sure I get all my work in, and then just come home. And, I really just spend a lot of time at this place I'm staying down here, which is actually – it's really nice. It's got a lot of space. I got a media room upstairs. It's got a pool table. So I honestly just will either listen to a podcast or something, just play pool, which is actually kind of peaceful for me because I'm getting better, A, and B, it's just kind of some good alone time. But
are you inviting us down there?
You're not allowed.
Is that what that was?
To come down. No, you're not allowed to come down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll humble that pool game.
Well, you've had a super busy off season too, I feel like.
Yeah. So, that's what, we talked about, we hadn't put out an episode in 4 months or so, but in reality, the off season almost is busier than the regular season. The regular season, it's very structured. I'm playing pretty much for 8 months, 2 of that being spring training or 1.5 of spring, and then another month for playoffs, and then the 6-month season. So it's kind of your day is structured. Your schedule. Each day you're playing around 7 o'clock, sometimes 1 o'clock. So you can kind of we can get on a good routine as far as doing these episodes or whatever else is going on in the, in the world and in life is easier during the season. But sometimes in the off season, everything that you were pushing off because you were in season, now you got to do out of season. And, we just moved into a new house. Mal and I did this off season. So
Macen and really Lex too. Boy, Macen got some big news out. The biggest news out of all of us, bro.
I know. I was about to say.
Yeah, this I'd say off season period. That's what it is for you. This winter period for me has been absolutely crazy. Lex and I moved into a new house, which, good Lord, that is a adventure within itself. You never realize how much stuff you have until you have to move said stuff. And you're like, what is in that box? And it's oh, it's from the back room. It's how many boxes are from the back room?
Put it in the attic.
Correct.
Yeah, put it in the attic.
It's all the stuff you said, I'll do something with this later. And then now is later. And you're
it's dang, all right, I got to do this. And then, biggest news probably is I got engaged 2 weekends ago, which talking about, pop it up. That's a life-changing moment right there, which was very interesting day all around, I would say. Getting engaged during a pandemic is very interesting of trying to coordinate everybody coming. Wish Dansby could have came up, but
I know. I
So,
asked, was not given
Mitchell was
permission.
there, so just really the best friend type deal.
Mitch was there. Mitch was there, but yeah, it was a lot of nervous energy that day. Not that I was nervous that she was going to say no.
Good nervous though.
Yeah.
It's just a big moment.
Did she say no?
No, a slight pause. There was a slight pause.
Yeah.
She
thought
said
about
no. She said no. Macen slid her $100 bill, and then
She said yes.
It's a pretty sweet bargain, bro.
It's money talks.
$100, that's straight.
Cash talks. But no, so we're doing that, and then obviously just we're in the middle of creating a media brand. So that's kind of going off right now in my entrepreneur flow. Shout out to my guy Kev. So if you haven't, go follow M-House Media. A little plug right there. We're about to create. We're
brought to you by our sponsor, M-House Media.
This is sponsored by M-House Media, which is me creating this for you. But no, we're trying to start our own brand and try to get our brand name and everything trademarked, which you know how that process is with all things loyal. It's kind of a tedious little guy.
Just trademark something today.
Yeah, so it is something that we're looking really forward to. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, so we've all had a busy little break here, and today we got a really good topic for you, which is kind of one like right now. I saw something that somebody said debate culture of sports is kind of ruining the internet. Well, here we go.
I'd say like clickbait culture though.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I think that debates have gotten so outrageous that like their takes are so out there just so you'll be like, all right, who is this dude? You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is informational sports debate. This isn't this isn't opinion over players or comparisons of players or anything of that sort. This is a little bit more in depth, and I feel like this will really help not only kids that have aspirations to be, professional athletes or even, collegiate athletes, but if any parents are listening to, I feel like this is a big thing, or coaches that are listening, just because this will really help, I think, really help you understand how to develop athletes to be the best versions of themselves, whether that's on field or off field. So,
right, and it's a very interesting topic, and it's a topic of nature versus nurture. So, what we're going to be talking to you all about today, which is something that you all probably discussed without even knowing, is we're going to be looking at and kind of studying professional athletes or elite athletes. So when I define elite, I'm talking about anybody who's played in a collegiate, for a NCAA team, for a national team, or a professional team when talking about any sport. So any sport you can think of, doesn't matter if it's table tennis, it doesn't matter if it's the MLB, it doesn't matter if it's NBA, whatever you may be at. We're going to be discussing, when it comes down to these individuals becoming elite athletes, is it more because of their genetic makeup that they have, so these genes that allow them to do these things that are more unnatural, high level than others, or is it the opportunities that they had growing up, which this is kind of the nature versus nurture argument. So just give you some quick definitions for some listeners who may not really understand fully in the depth what we're talking about. So when we speak on something called nature, the definition I got for you is generally refers to care given to children by parents, or more broadly, that to their environmental influences. So this is what you are acquiring genetically. So your parents are giving it to you. So you inherit this when you were born. Nurture is more referring to all the environmental variables that impact who we are, including our early childhood experiences, how we were raised, how we develop social relationships, and the culture that surrounds that. So these are some character traits that are acquired over time. And so when you're analyzing different athletes, it's very, very interesting to see, why are they the way that they are? And I'm interested to hear kind of not only what they have to say, but the reaction to this conversation as well. Personally, do y'all want to start first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, just roll with it.
Have y'all heard
that personally, like it was about to come out hot, bro? So.
Well, I got a little heat on me. I did a little research.
I was gonna say, I mean, you see it firsthand being a coach and everything, and Dansby seen it firsthand, just getting to the level that he's at.
Well,
so.
let me ask y'all, starting off by this. Have you heard of something called the 10,000 hour rule?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what is that?
So 10,000 hour rule is essentially this, I guess you'd call it like almost like a theory. that Malcolm Gladwell, right, wrote in his book
Yep.
called The Outliers, which is a great book for anybody who wants to read that. Malcolm Gladwell is a very smart dude. But I would say that the 10,000-hour rule is essentially for no matter whatever profession it is that you're doing, whether you're a violinist, I think that's like the analogy he uses in the book, is to become a true elite master at something, you need to have put in 10,000 hours of work for, like, to reach that tier, to basically master your craft, essentially.
Right. And so the idea is this is nurture. So this is the argument saying that in order for you to be, right, so in order for Dansby to play at a very high level, he has to have 10,000 hours of practicing that craft. Now, the other question is just 10,000 hours of you practicing the craft is most likely not going to get you. So you have to have something that's called like deliberate practice, meaning it's not 10,000 hours of you playing baseball in the front yard or us playing softball in Nancy's kitchen. It is, 10,000 hours of you deliberately practicing the skills that are going to make you successful at that next level.
Intentional work.
Yes, intentional work, right? So you're in the cage, you're taking, you're doing infield drills, whatever it may be growing up. All right. And so if you were to really take those 10,000 hours, if you practice intentionally for 6 hours a day, this would take you anywhere between 4 and 5 years, right, to develop this skill. So when talking about professional athletes and what this, genetic makeup or whatnot, and when you're looking at this thing of 10,000 hours, my question is, how can it not be nurture that makes you a professional athlete? Because if you have certain opportunities when you're younger, right? So let's say your parents, which happened to all of us, at the age of 2 or 18 months or a year, they put a baseball glove in your hand, okay? And they introduce you to the sport of baseball. So at that young age, you automatically associate, playing sports. You're starting to learn a little bit about baseball. You grow up, and then let's say maybe at 6, you have the ability to play for a T-ball team. And then that T-ball team turns into a high-level T-ball team. That leads you to playing at a high level at 7 and 8. And then at 8 years old, maybe you go to a new facility that has great coaching. It has, people that can deliberately help you in trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And they give you different tools and you become better and better and better. Well, the idea is you have been given certain opportunities that other individuals haven't, right? So that would allow you, in theory, to reach your 10,000 hours quickly. So because you're reaching your 10,000 hours quickly, that allows you to be more proficient or more professional at a younger age. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, how is nurture not the main component when talking about what makes you a professional athlete?
Mitch, do you have an opinion before I go?
I mean, not necessarily. You can bust it.
So I think when you picture it and phrase it when you paint the picture the way that you just did, then the clear answer is nurture. But I don't think that the way that it was depicted is necessarily the end all be all. And the reason I say that is because, like, there's tiers and levels to every bit of this, right? It's never as clear cut as this nature or nurture, which, for the sake of the argument, that's kind of what we're doing. But right. How I'm looking at it is saying, if you have someone that's naturally extremely gifted, of course, if they're not given the same opportunities as far as, let's say, my mom and dad never put a baseball glove or a baseball in my hands, then I would not be where I'm at, because I would never have gotten fully into the sport, even if I was genetically made to be able to do some of those things, right? That's the easy way to look at it for me. But if you take it a step further, and kind of the example I use is, if you take someone that's naturally gifted, let's say on a 1 out of 10 level, if he's naturally gifted as an 8, and a person, and they're given poor coaching versus someone that's naturally gifted with a level 3 talent that's given the best coaching, I would still put my money on the person that was naturally gifted at the 8. Because I think that that's too big of a gap to make up. Because at the end of the day, if they have the same amount of hours and one of them's not necessarily the best coaching versus the nurture component, then I think in the long haul, I would put my money on the nature part. Because genetically speaking, and I don't know what level you're trying to look at, but I have a feeling that that person's going to get more out of their performance than someone that's starting lesser. But if you start narrowing the gap and you say, like, for instance, right, like, and I'm not trying to talk bad about like a Northwestern football team, but they're not getting 5 stars. They're probably not really getting 4 stars. They're getting 3 stars and 2 stars, and they're still competing at a high level. Now, is that because of the environment that they're put in, right? There's so many like complex ways to look at it. The other prime example that I always talk about is there's no such thing as a perfect system, right? Like I think about football. There's no such thing as a perfect system. However, like I'm talking schematically. However, I do think there's a perfect system in getting the most out of what your player is naturally gifted at, right? So like if you had Mahomes, and maybe he's not as good of an example because he is that talented, right? What if you put him in a situation where he was in Tennessee with Derrick Henry? Would he be the same quarterback? I would venture to say no, right? So, but when you put an elite talent level guy, put in a environment and system in which he's in where he can thrive off of what he's best at, then you get the elite of the elite. So to me, it's definitely it's always in the middle. Like these answers are always in the middle.
I was gonna say, like, you can even use us 3 as an example. We played on the same team, and like you could no knock on me and Mace, but like Dansby was like just gifted at what he was doing, and he made the jump to that next upper. From we were all right here, we were going to the same practices and everything. Same time commitment, everything, and he was already just like that much better, So it's like we had the same opportunities, but he was just more on pace to get to that next level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just given more from my parents.
And people ask me all the time, did you know like Dansby was like gonna be in the league when y'all were little kids? I'm like, yes, like he was that much better than us, and we were on the top team, and he was better than us.
Yeah.
So that's nature. Like we all had the same opportunity. We all went to the same practices, same games, same everything. Granted, he might have been doing some stuff outside of that, but like as far as opportunity, we were all right there, and then he made the jump, and we did not.
Right, and so
here's
Dansby said something that is very interesting, and he's talking about coaching. And so there was a study. So I part of my research, I kind of looked into this. Princeton University did a study. They kind of say Georgia Southern's like the Princeton of the South or something like that.
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's what I hear. But so a Princeton study did, a study on effectiveness of deliberate practice. So if you are actually having a practice that is designed to get the most out of your hours, how effective is that? And like, what is your result? Like, how much better are you going to be because of that? And I got some stats for you. So when it comes down to your effectiveness in a game, okay, deliberate practice made a 26% difference. When it comes down to more practice in music, all right, this made a 21% difference. When it comes down to sports, it made an 18% difference. And when it comes down to education, it makes a 4% difference. And when it comes down to certain professions, whether it's media or whatever, it makes a 1% difference. And so the question is, well, is it really worth it to practice that much? Or is the practice time worth it? Like, I'm sure everybody on this call has been involved in a coach or been on a team where you practiced for, till the sun went down, and you might as well start and when the sun came up.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you practice hard too.
You
Yeah.
practice hard, and you practice for a long time. And I know each one of us has been sitting there, whether you're waiting for a transition of a drill, whether you're, waiting for, to pick up the balls or whatever. And you thought to yourself, is this worth it? Like,
Oh yeah.
is this worth my time? Like, what are we even doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the thing that the study comes out is it says it's actually better for growth to have less practice, but you have to practice less with the combination of having a high grade teacher or coach. So you can
It's
practice
quality and quantity.
exactly.
Right. You're not just wasting your time.
Exactly. So you become a master faster if you have less practice, but your quality of practice is a lot higher, right? So you're absolutely like developing this specific skill that you're trying to deliberately be better at.
So if you're asking if it's worth it, I would say absolutely yes, because I don't think I don't want people to get fooled by the numbers, because even when you said, 1% difference, all I'm
That's
searching for right
1%.
now
It's 1%.
in my – say what?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're searching for that 1%, but
I'm searching for 1% right now. Dude, if I got a 26% increase, dude, could you like – so here's how I look at it. Let's say in 2019 I hit 251, and let's just say I had 150 hits, right?
Yeah.
Give me a 26% increase, and let's say that gave me, out of 100 at bats, or I got 26 more hits, bro, I'd be hitting close to 300, if not 320.
But remember,
and I'm like,
this is for trying to get kids to the elite status. So you are – I hate saying this.
I
But
know.
you are already,
I was trying not to say it earlier, but
you are already considered elite, and it hurts to say, but you are already considered elite in this category. So you,
well, when you said elite at a college level, that kind of even made me go like,
well, when you're talking, remember statistics now. So if you're talking about elite athletes, so technically what is defined as if you are an elite athlete is if you make it to the NCAA level, you play on a national team or a profession. So, and that's just because of statistics, right? We all know that how many percentage of students actually make it to go play in the second,
right?
And so that's kind of very interesting. Now, the other thing we're gonna have to look at for nurture is this thing called motivation, right? So that's part of nurture as well. A lot of people forget that is okay. Well, the power of motivation is, fill in the blank.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so they said, in order to achieve this professional status, not only do you have to practice, but your motivational mindset has to be one to where you have this idea of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And so the fixed mindset, which is the problem that's plaguing America right now, is fixed mindsets say that you're blaming others for your failures. Well, the coach isn't calling the right plays. Well, I didn't get enough touches. Well, we're running the wrong offense. And then a growth mindset is, okay, how can I fix this? And so I think motivation plays a large role into this too.
Well, I'm going to be careful about using the term motivation.
I know you don't like motivation, but
yeah. But and the only reason I'm saying that too is because motivation is very much a feeling that comes and goes. Like, I'm not motivated all the time by any means, and I'll be the first to admit that. However, I am disciplined with those things, because even when I don't feel motivated, I still get the stuff done that I need to get done. And we've obviously been over that before in previous podcasts. But it's tough for me to I guess maybe it's just because of where I'm at and the things that I've seen. Nurture is definitely a big part of it. But I also want to mention, I think your nature determines what kind of nurture that you need. Because there are certain people, like, let's just say me, for instance. With my nature, I need to be nurtured a different way and need a certain type of environment that's going to help me thrive more. And I feel like that's really, really important for coaches to understand, is prime example in hitting. Half the people in the world think, teach swing down on the ball. The other half teach swing up on the ball, And the best hitting coaches that I know, it's neither. It's what works for you, right? Like, what does your so naturally I have a pretty downward swing. If I think down, I hit 210, right? 220. I did what I did my first couple of years. When I start thinking swing up, it actually levels me out to where I have started to get better and progress as a player, right? So that's a nurture argument to my nature. Now a guy like I'll use him as an example because we just signed him, but Jake Lamb. He's in there talking today about how he has to think down because that levels him out because normally he's more up, right? So that to me, that's a prime example because naturally I do this where I need to start thinking that to get the best result. And I think that's the same thing for a lot of people. Like there's no one way to look at it, especially in coaching. The best way is to listen to your player and understand that this is actually going to get you to do that instead of you do that naturally. So we'll work on this, right? It is a very interesting argument. And I think that's just where coaching, in my opinion, really needs to take that next step in helping empower kids how to learn about themselves and learn what they're naturally gifted at and how to corral that into being an elite player, right? Because how often do you hear in the draft, like NFL draft or combine, that guy's really raw, which essentially means he hasn't been nurtured too well, right?
Right. But he's got the nature aspect
right.
of it.
He's naturally like people will say that about Justin Fields, quarterback.
He's got the intangibles.
Oh man, great arm, great mobility,
tall, big hands,
tall, strong, built good. But does he have as much of the skill as what they're looking for? He can definitely grow into that. But would you rather take Justin Fields? Would you rather take Justin Fields or because of all those things that he was gifted with? Or would you say, no, I'm going to take so-and-so. Who's I'm trying to think of somebody.
Or who's the guy?
Bryce Young?
Yeah, from BYU.
Oh, no, Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
No, that's a whole nother debate.
Yeah.
But, are you going to take a guy that has the things you're looking for skill-wise but doesn't have the arm, doesn't have the strength, doesn't have the size? And I would venture to say you're like Josh Allen. That boy was raw. Look at him now, balling.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Trey Lance would probably be a good example because he just doesn't even have film out there. They didn't even play this last year. But he's 6'5", can scoot and boot, has an arm from what they do have on, film on him. But do you take that raw product and figure out how to nurture it into where you want him to go?
Correct. Yeah. So I would imagine, and most coaches probably say, well, I'm taking the nature. You know why? Because all coaches feel that they can nurture that person to get to where they want. Right. They feel like they can get them if I just got my hands on them, baby, it's going to be nice.
It's a wrap.
So I that's why I still tend to say the nature aspect because the nature, to really break it down, and I know we're doing a terrible job at picking sides here, which I think is
we got to cover all the bases. Yeah.
Nature will get you to a certain level, right? Let's say nature gets you to the college level, right? Nurture gets you to be a player in the professional ranks, right? And then that's when, we were talking about, finding those extra little percentages, get you to be elite amongst the elite, right? Like the Freddie Freemans, the Mike Trouts, the Mookie Betts, those guys. Right? That's a different level of player. Partially because of the nature, but partially because of the nurture too. Which is why I say I think that's why I put a lot on coaches to say, no, you need to be better at figuring out what your player is good at, and then nurturing those strengths.
Very.
Like, I hate the like whole argument of like, oh, well, he can't do this. Well, who cares? Like, who cares if they can't do that? Really, really
can they
double
do?
down on what they're good at, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't quit telling me what he can't do. Tell me what he can do.
Yeah, and so part of what we were talking about before the show started or the podcast started is I was telling you I'm reading that book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and he talks about that. So they say this guy is a tennis coach by trade, and so he was saying, but this relates to all sports because you're about to understand completely what I'm talking about. So when someone is having a great game, like let's say that they've got 40 points or whatever in an NBA basketball game. All right. It's not because they're hyper focused on what they're doing. They'll say that, oh my gosh, this kid's playing out of his mind, right? Or he's unconscious. Like this kid he's going off. And that's because he is, or they are, right? And so the theory is that like you play the best when you're comfortable and you believe in yourself, which all of us and any athlete, I think, can equate to this, right? So imagine if you're playing, I don't know, a pickup basketball game or golf. We all golf. We'll go golf. If you're golfing with somebody, I'm not going to put them out there who's, worse, like Mitch, if we go golf with somebody who's worse than us, I'd feel no pressure as if I have to beat them because I already know I'm better than them. So what ends up happening? I play my best round of golf. Why? Because I'm relaxed. I'm not thinking about it. But if we go play, with people who are better than us and have lower handicaps than us, we might feel the need to, oh man,
I got to make this shot.
I got to make this shot. Or you start thinking too much. I got to keep my chest down. I got to reach more back. I got to come more up in my swing. I got to do this with my feet. And then all of a sudden you start messing up little stuff. And he says, when people come to him for tennis lessons, they'll go, oh man, my backhand's really off. They'll be like, why? They'll be like, oh, well, I've had 3 or 4 pros tell me that my racket's too high. I'm coming down at too bad of an angle. I'm not coming up enough, yada, yada. But all right, we'll just hit some. And he doesn't say anything. He just lets them hit, which is a great coaching point for all the other coaches out there. Half the time, you don't need to say anything. Just be quiet and watch. And you're like, that's not coaching. I guarantee you it is. Because just be quiet and watch what they do. Because oftentimes, you'll be able to pick up little stuff that they're doing, and you can give them, and this is where the other part comes in. It's like, let's say that in golf, their feet are really bad, but their backswing is, okay. If you tell them, hey, man, maybe you want to scoot your feet in, and they scoot their feet in, and then their backswing becomes terrible, it's because their brain is too crowded. So it's also like there's a study saying that the more positivity feedback you give an athlete, like the better they are just to fix the little things naturally. And so he says further for this backswing of this woman he's given a lesson to, he's like, well, have you not seen somebody do a backswing, like a backhand? And she's like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, just do that. And she's like, well, let me hit you 10. He said like 8 out of the 10, she hit perfect. He's like, what's the difference? She's like, I wasn't really thinking about it. And that's the exact point, right? Like your mental state, it's like the same thing, for golf, like we said, we play our best golf when you're not thinking about it. Think about when you're playing, like when we were younger, trying to play pickup basketball with somebody that's older than us. Like if you feel that pressure to try to make shots or do things, you're not going to play very well. But when you're playing with somebody that's garbage, our little brother or whatever, then they're going to go off.
Split.
Yeah. They're going to go off, which is this like interesting kind of idea.
Like when I played Dansby in basketball.
Yeah, like when we played Dansby in basketball, it's like no pressure at all.
It's like split. Yeah.
It was like no pressure. I was beating y'all 1-on-2. Whatever.
That's not true.
Yeah, for all you listeners, that is not.
That is not true.
Well, I'm gonna throw this out at you though, in a different way, and I thought that's what you were gonna say, but in a different light, I would say. So let's say the high school kid scores 40, right, and you're like, man, he was just unconscious today. Part of it too is you almost feel like that kid's strengths were utilized in that game, whether it was the game plan or because let's just say the guy can really shoot it and they were playing a soft 2-3 zone or something, and he was able to get a lot of open looks. Well, naturally, like you hear this all the time, I'm looking for so-and-so to have a big game because, they play this style of ball and this is what he's really good at, and it's going to expose all of the holes in which the team that he's playing. And for me, as an athlete, I almost think of like that person is in a flow state is what I'll call it. Like they're in like this flow state because they don't have to think, because all the things that they're naturally gifted at is coming naturally as well in the game. So they're just flowing with what the game's given them, right?
Coaching.
But yeah, exactly. So, but then all of a sudden, let's just say they are that shooter, but they're playing somebody that plays a press style, defense, kind of helter skelter, a lot of hand checking, a lot of fighting and stuff. They may not have as good of a game unless if there is a game plan to put them into that like rhythm and flow state. Same with, how you start off quarterbacks for a game. Give them some easy throws, let them get in rhythm. We talk about that all the time. Literally same thing applies in life, but I think that that's a huge component of athlete success. And like we were just talking about, because
Good coaching.
when they get into their rhythm, correct, when they're put in a place to succeed, it'd be like, let's just use we'll use baseball as an example. This is easy for me to break down. It's like how your bullpen, managing your bullpen. Are you putting your relievers in a position to succeed? Are you bringing your lefty specialist in to face 3 right-handed hitters? I'll let you know how that's going to go. Not good, right? And it's going to be like, oh, that person's not any good, this and that. It's like, no, because he was not in an environment that's going to be good for his success.
Right.
However, you line him up with 3 lefties, and I bet you it goes really good for him, right? So, I mean, that to me is a huge part of it is, are you being put in situations to succeed? Now, granted, that's also at the highest of the highest levels. But when you're younger, yeah, you need to figure out how to get those righties out too, right? Or you're not going to get to that next phase. So it is a very interesting argument. I think the nurturing component, to me, takes okay players to good players to great players, and great players to top level players, and your freaks that are blessed beyond measure to like the greatest of all time argument. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, okay, so we've talked a lot about the nurture now. How do we deny the fact that homie's 6'9" with a 8-foot wingspan and a 30-inch vert? How do you just
put the right ball? Put the right ball in his hand.
Yeah, but how do you deny like Giannis? Like, he's a genetically gifted freak. Like, that is 100% nature. He did nothing to receive that. It's not like he took some pill or whatever to make him receive that height. He just is like that, and his brothers are like that. Now, obviously, we can talk about the difference between Giannis and his brothers, but just him being a genetic freak, like, how do you look at people like that and go, well, dang, that's not – it has to be genetics because homie's 6'9".
Yeah, well, like, what about when I was back in school over the summer, we were talking about similar kinds of things, and genetically speaking, if you're 7 foot, there's I don't know how many 7-footers in the world, but if you're 7 foot, your chances of being an NBA basketball player are astronomically bigger than any other size. Like it's like almost like, I don't want to get the number wrong, but it's like 15% of 7-footers are in the league. So it's like if you're 7 foot, you have a huge advantage over anyone else just purely because of size.
Yeah. And so the other thing, this is where I want to kind of stem into is one of our last discussions is, if you're looking at elite athletes, and this is what always, I think we've all talked about this before, but how many elite athletes have parents that were also elite athletes? You know what I mean? Like, how many elite athletes or professionals have parents that were either they played in college or they played in the NFL, or, you're talking about like the Griffey or Curry or Klay Thompson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you start breaking that down and you go, okay, well, is Steph Curry the way that he is? Because Steph Curry's what, 6'2", maybe, probably 6'3" on a roster to look good.
Yeah.
And so, traditionally speaking, there's guards that are way taller than 6'3" in the league all over the place. Like, that's like the new guard is like 6'4", 6'5".
6'5", yeah.
And so when you're looking at this, is Steph Curry the way that he is, and was he as comfortable playing around big time people because he grew up with his dad and being in Charlotte and having the opportunity to shoot around in an NBA gym and
Yeah.
you know, like how much does that play into it?
Yeah, and I'll take that even a step further. I'll use like the Ball brothers as an example. I would love to know a study on this too, of the youngest sibling in an athletic family. How if they end up being the best athlete. Yeah.
I don't have that, but I do have other numbers for us. I went ahead and got a study.
Yeah, Mason comes strapped with the numbers.
I came strapped with the numbers today, people.
You're a teacher at heart.
Teacher at heart, former math major.
And here we go.
Boy loves the numbers. All right, let's hit it.
So, in 2016, it's not like a game host. 2016, the Wall Street Journal, okay, they did a study, and they found that 48.8% of NBA players are related to current or former elite athletes. And again, they're using the same. That's why, see, I set y'all up. They're using the same standard for elite as what I've been using this whole time.
Elite. If you pretty much played above high school, right?
Correct. You are considered an elite athlete. And so when you're looking at this, that's 48% in the NBA, 17.5% in the NFL, and 14.5% in the MLB are related to someone that is currently or former elite athletes.
So you're basically saying in the NBA, 52% are not.
Correct. So, but still 48%, that's a large number.
I'd say because a lot of that is size.
Right. So it's obviously it's a genetic, it's a nature argument, but that's kind of an interesting stat. And people, you know, I was reading this study, and this is kind of weird, but the Wall Street guy was like, you know, this makes sense if you're looking at like professional horses, like horse races.
Oh yeah.
They
breeding with the Oh yeah.
They come from a line where they come from other professional horses, like people who have won the Triple Crown or whatever.
Yeah, like 100 years ago, like down the line. Oh yeah.
Exactly. And he goes, so if they're doing it in horses, like why do you not think it would make sense for people just to be genetic? And that's always funny, you know, when you're talking about, you know, having children or whatever. Like you know, like if people probably said well, you and Mao, if you guys have children, not pushing it on.
Yeah. No. Oh, y'all have super babies. Yeah.
Y'all have super babies. Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
However, I'm going to say this about your number, though, that I think is going to – this is why it's that much more advantageous, in my opinion, to be coming from an elite athlete family. I would like to know a couple things, though, about it. I mean, I know you're not going to have these answers, but are both parents elite level? Is it just one? Is it just the other?
It could be an uncle. It just said related.
Yeah, it said related to.
It don't even say parent. It could be an uncle, cousin.
I will say this, though. 48%, and what was it for MLB? What did you say, 10?
14.
The pool in which you're drawing from elite athletes is way, way, way smaller than – it's like Gonzaga versus the field this year in NCAA tournament. Odds are you'd go ahead and pick the field just because the pool is bigger. The odds are better, right? So that's what's kind of interesting to me, though, thinking about this, because it's like if there's – we'll just say, for example, to make it easy, 100 players in the MLB, 14 of them are related, have relation. The other 86 do not. But that 14 may only be from, let's just say, 1,000 people versus the other 86 could be from 100,000, right? So your odds are actually better if you come from an elite background, if that makes sense. Do you see what I'm saying?
If you come
from an elite background. There's less elite level athletes, as we're calling them, elite level athletes to draw from than the rest. So your odds would actually, it's a greater percentage of people are coming from that than elsewhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but also I think it's interesting that you are part of that 14%.
Yeah, shout out Nancy and Cooter.
Yeah, Nancy and Cooter. Nancy in the Hall of Fame represent.
Yeah, so you come from – so that's what I think about all the time is – and think about your mom coached us.
Oh, I know.
Like so you had to have some sort of advantage because your parents have been playing at a higher level, sport. Where my father didn't even play sports.
Right.
My mom, she played sports, but it wasn't at an elite level by any means. So it's like, okay, well, how does that get? It's just interesting to me to kind of analyze and look at those numbers for genetics.
For sure. And I think it's fun to build. We just kind of did like build the context around it
Yeah.
because it is such an interesting debate. And, this is just kind of like the what if scenarios and stuff. But it's also interesting to think about what kind of like backgrounds those people grew up with, because I know a lot of elite level, players that have kids and their kids are not that good, whether it's because of the nurturing almost. So it was like too easy for them growing up because they had everything, and it's like the argument for another day of how much more difficult is it raising kids with a lot of money? Because shoot, when we were growing up, brother, it's like, what, you want those $130 pair of shoes? Think again. Like,
you better go
you
cut
can get
some
the
grass.
$70 one. Yeah,
Go cut some grass.
Yeah, because I ain't paying for that. But when you raise a kid with a lot of money, it's like, how can you really say no? Like,
yeah, that's just
and explain it.
That's a problem for you and Mao to figure out. Me and Mitchell will be.
We'll be in the 70s.
If you want your kid to come cut our yard, just let them know it's $15 off the top. That's it.
Yeah, or y'all.
Mason's got a big yard though.
Y'all will be asking me for my Nike account so y'all can get your kids shoes.
Hey, that is not my fault that they put that tunnel there. It's not my fault he threw me the ball. It's not my fault I'm fast. I just did what I did.
No, I think it's an interesting argument, and I think that if there's any takeaway, obviously both are very important. I think it's really for coaches to understand what the nature is so they can develop the nurture. I also think it's important for parents because, I personally, I don't do lessons. That's just not really like my thing. I'll help kids if I'm hitting with them or whatever, but I don't seek out to do lessons for money or whatever. But I've definitely come across kids where their parents are very pushy about it. And it's like, yo, I'm not helping your kid because, like, no offense, but, like, you're wasting your money. Like, this kid, I know good players, and I know he doesn't have it. Like, there's no coaching that's going to take this kid from the level he's at to where you want him to be. Like,
exactly.
I'm sorry. I don't care what kind of training you do. Your kid will only throw 83. Like, he's not going to throw any harder than that. Okay, so I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I think as a good little wrap-up point is it's not one or the other, which some people are probably listening like, that's stupid. You dragged us along here for 45 minutes. Now you're going to tell me that it's not, because it's not. I think you have to have a combination of both, right? So, like, and it's all about timing too. For example, for myself, I was 6 foot going into college. Well, when I came out of college, I was 6'3". It's my genetic.
I'm still waiting.
It's gonna come. So
we'll get there. I'm gonna get 6.
Keep it, brother. It'll be all right. You'll get there.
But I do want to kind of just backtrack a little bit too, going back on talking about coaching and finding the strengths and stuff. I mean, who's that knuckleball pitcher in the league that was there forever?
R.A.
Dickey.
But he couldn't throw 84, but he was in the league.
Yeah,
because he found what he could do to get himself there. Go back to Mason's term, was motivated to get there and figured out how he could use his strengths in that nurturing. And I'm sure he got coached up on how to throw a knuckleball or whatever. But
right.
It's still possible, even not being
correct
able to with nature throwing 102 miles an hour like the norm is now. Like,
I think it's also interesting too that we came in here talking about our goal was to talk about how athletes got there, and I thought the conversation was going to be stemming around athletes. And what I'm really kind of getting at this is a lot of this comes down to coaching. Who are you around?
I would say development.
You're obviously we all have coaches, like we said, who have done us a lot and they're really good, and you can say, oh, that guy's really good. Or you've been to a coach like, this dude, either he doesn't know what he's talking about, it's just not for me.
No, brother.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
That's part of it, that's
And so
You're
it
not
almost
always going to have a good coach.
right. And so it's almost interesting to say, okay, well, instead of looking at how many of these players have, genetically gifted parents, how many of these players have had elite coaching? You know how they do like the survey of like, oh, this was Nick Saban's staff in 2004, and you see all the coaches that have come from Nick Saban, or this is Urban Meyer's staff at Florida, and you see all the coaches that are now head coaches, and you're like, dang, like, how is that? And then they call it like the coaching tree.
The Belichick, same way.
Yeah, the Belichick, and so that's very interesting that it is true. I'm with you, Dansby. I do agree that your genetic makeup gets you to a certain point, and then deliberate good coaching that is specific to you is what
Correct.
takes you to that next level. Because like for football, we'll have kids that are, hopefully don't offend anybody, are terrible, but they're 6'7", weaker than well water, can't bench 225 pounds, and coaches will come in and Kirby Smart will look at him and be like, hey, what's his deal? What's that kid's name? I'm like, Coach, watch his film. He's like, yeah, but Coach, he's 6'7". You can't teach size.
Exactly. That's you can't teach size. You can't teach speed. You can't teach some of these God-given intangibles.
Yeah.
Whether it's mentally, mentally is definitely more acquired, I would say. But that can be that could be a part too, because that's
the mental aspect as a whole,
which we need like a brain expert on here, because it's a combination of both. Once again,
because if you look at like the Julian Edelmans of the world, or he's not
my boy Spud Webb.
Yeah, but like they're not genetically gifted, or even like you could say like Chris Paul.
Right.
He's not genetically gifted, but his IQ level is high. He understands the game. He's, more mature in certain aspects. So it's like, all right, well, that allows him to do what he does. And he's a heck of a bowler.
Yeah, he's a heck of a bowler.
So it's very interesting.
Good for him.
Good for him. And Mookie Betts.
But I'm just going to say this to wrap it up on like a good positive note. If there's anything to be taken away from this other than just phenomenal conversation, it would be, like we've always talked about in life, but especially for athletes, find what your strengths are. Like, truly reflect and understand what your strengths are and do those. Talk about what you can do. Don't talk about what you can't do. Okay? I promise you that will lead you to a better spot, because you're actually going to be playing to your strengths, which I would double down on my strengths before I would try and work on like a weakness, right? So that's just my Dan's wisdom for the day.
Yeah, find what you're good at
for the episode.
Find the best way to get better at that.
Facts.
Because
deliberately.
You're good at something for a reason. So dedicate yourself to that reason and just watch the growth happen.
Facts.
But
good ep.
Yeah, good episode. We appreciate it.
I know we ain't even missed a beat, bro.
And even